Federal agencies could soon be forced off Chinese, Russian, and Iranian AI under the new No Adversarial AI Act. This is a direct response to DeepSeek's alarming data leaks to the CCP. But is this a necessary security guardrail or the start of an AI Cold War? Join me as we dive into how this law could reshape America's AI edge. Watch the full video to find out what this means for our future.
So let's go to the next one. They're talking about the Trump administration, the No Adversarial AI Act, which basically would outlaw things like DeepSeek. I mean, when we say foreign AI, it strikes me we're really saying Chinese AI, because I haven't heard of anyone else's AI, and I don't think I'm going to. Where they would say that basically, a la TikTok, to a certain extent, Chinese AI would not be allowed to be used in the United States. What are your thoughts on this, Gary?
So first of all, I think the act specifies that we can't use any, or the US government can't use any AI that originates from countries like China, Russia, and Iran. I think you've got it nailed. It's China, Russia, and Iran. Yeah. Iran doesn't have their own AI model, right? So, okay. I have two thoughts on this. First of all, as critical as I typically am about just government in general, let alone our government, this is the least crazy thing I've ever heard in my life. It actually makes a whole lot of sense, right? Do we really want to give the Chinese a backdoor into everything our government is doing? This actually makes a lot of sense. It'll be interesting to see if it gets bipartisan support or if somebody will find a way to be upset about this. The other thing is, I think it's really important to understand the kinds of things that China is doing to make our lives precarious and how important it is that we decouple a whole lot from them. So just as an example, DeepSeek, we all got really excited about it just last January. That was 5 months ago. And it's already been figured out that DeepSeek relays user information to the CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party. These are reasonable fears, right? You have to assume that anything you put on DeepSeek or any Chinese AI is going straight to the Chinese government, right? And someone watching this might say, well, what do I care? I don't have any secrets. I don't care if the Chinese know what I'm doing. Okay, but that doesn't mean the government should be doing this. We shouldn't have these kinds of leaks. The other thing is that we were talking about this just a couple weeks ago. Enrique, did you see the news where China was putting kill switches and other spyware and damaging equipment in solar panel inverters? The equipment...
I heard something about it. I didn't read it, but yeah. Okay,
so basically, if you're buying solar panels, you are buying Chinese equipment. If we're using them on an industrial scale, that the equipment that's used to connect those solar panels to the grid, the Chinese hid communication devices in there and various other measures that they could use to damage or cripple our grid. People talk about the importance of having, this relationship with China, doing business with them. When you are doing business with people like this, you really need to think about decoupling. And I certainly understand a lot of people are saying, oh no, it's going to lead to inflation. Oh no, things will cost more. Listen, I hate inflation. I hate things costing more. But there are costs to doing business with people who are trying to harm you that are just not being discussed or evaluated by serious people. I'm going to give the US government credit here for looking at this, identifying this as a weakness and saying, let's head this off before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The Chinese are not our friends. The Chinese have been laughing their, excuse my language, asses off at the West for 25 years. The Chinese are the friends of the Chinese and no one else. They have their interest in mind. They don't really care about the globe other than it helps them. And by the way, we could say probably a lot of these things about America in certain ways, but the difference is they are very active promoting that as a plan throughout all of their operations. We could talk about rare earths would be a really fun one to go through and deconstruct that. Mm-hmm. But, it comes back to the whole TikTok thing. People say, well, who cares about my information? That's fine. But you know what? You'll survive without TikTok. It's not going to change your life. As much as you love TikTok, you'll just go on to Reels. You didn't have TikTok 5 years ago. So to me, it even becomes a little bit more simple. Do you really need the Chinese AI? because we don't have a bunch of really great AI programs, and so you're not going to be able to survive with it. And so if we know they have a back door, and we know they do, why even bother? Why is this even a question? Why is this even a debate? Because I'll tell you what you can't get in China? Facebook and YouTube and Google and American AI. So I fail to understand constantly why we are allowing their products here that they do not allow there. It doesn't make any sense. Where is the benefit? And especially when we get into things like TikTok and DeepSeek, like we could talk about inflation. Okay, you like your $30 Christmas tree, and now it's going to cost you $60. That's a bummer, and that's real money. Okay, but TikTok, DeepSeek, come on, give me a break. Americans need to start thinking about. And I'm not a Trumper. I have the things I like and things I'm absolutely disgusted by. But we need to start thinking about American interest and protecting them, and give the Trump administration credit. And by the way, give the Biden administration credit too. Gradually, these administrations on both sides, and the Dems and the Republicans, have been waking up to the fact that China is not our friend. And so, small sacrifice. You can't use some crappy, cheap AI program. You're going to be just fine with Gemini and ChatGPT and 100 other things that we've got out there. So get over it. I'm a big fan of this move.
You know what?
So
the thing I would add to it, I agree with everything you just said. The thing I would add to it is when you're saying, do we really need this? You didn't have it a few years ago. Beyond all of that, do you want your 12-year-old being programmed by the CCP? Right? Do you want your elections programmed by the CCP? Right? There are costs here. And I think you said something really important, right? You're talking about what's in our best interest. And it's just one person. But I had the most fascinating conversation a couple of weeks ago in Lisbon. I was walking with somebody by the river here, and she was talking about various policies of President Trump that she didn't like. And so, I'm just listening. Interesting to get her point of view. And I said, so what's your impression? She said, oh, I like him. And I said, okay, you were just very critical. Help me understand why. Why do you like him? She said, because he has America's best interests at heart. She said, because he's trying to do the best for his people, and our politicians should try to do the best for us. And it was a really interesting, astute observation. Now, for those of you listening to this, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but the point that Enrique's making is we should have our own best interests at heart. And that, that was something that had come up in a conversation that I was having here just a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was a really, it was a nuanced take from a European looking at American politics.
Well, and I'll throw one last thing into that too, is that the Chinese aren't the Europeans' friends either.
No.
Like the Chinese are in the process of absolutely devastating the European auto market with essentially subsidized EVs.
Right.
And it's just going to be, they're going to be tens of thousands of jobs lost in Europe if they don't step up, and they're not coming back. And they're good, important jobs. And so someone has a $25,000 Euro really cool BYD car. This is a $35,000 locally produced car. Okay, well, that's $10,000 and 20 years of jobs that aren't there. So, again, and that's fine. If we just acknowledge they're not our friends, we work with people all the time and have very productive relationships, even though they are quasi-adversarial.